So, Rob, got a question for you. Because in fact, I probably should pull up testingtheglobe.com, and I probably will eventually. I'll wait probably to the first break, though, because as you know, Windows 10 and Skype has a known issue, and if it dies, I'll be dropped off, and then Jonathan and you will just have to talk. Okay. But did you get by chance? There's a couple things I want to ask you topic-wise. Did you get a chance when things were being passed around the internet to look at Wernher von Braun's headstone over the last month?
Yes. Yeah.
Where where it had, Wernher von Braun, for people that have missed history, he predates NASA. Not only, he was one of the founding members and instrumental in creating NASA, but he worked for the Nazi war machine back in World War II. And his headstone is remarkably small. There's not much to it. It's not like a picture of him holding a rocket looking at the sky or anything like that. In fact, there's very little cement. It's just a really humble headstone. But on it is a single Bible verse, Psalm 19:1, which I thought was very interesting because the Psalm 19:1 is, depending on what Bible you look, I'm going to use the King James, says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." And I thought that was very interesting because, one, this is coming from a scientist. There's some scientists that go to church, of course, but this was the quintessential rocket scientist. When everyone uses that joke, you're either a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist, this is that guy. And he mentioned Psalm 19:1. I thought that was very telling. You got any comment on that?
Yeah, I have heard different stories about him later in life, kind of changing his ways and, supposedly giving his life to God and spilling the beans on some things. And he had that interview with, I forget her name, something Ross or something like that. Dr. Carolyn Rosin. That's it. That's the one.
Carolyn Rosin?
Yeah, that talked about her interview or whatever. She had final words with von Braun before he died. She was like a personal secretary to him, something. And supposedly he laid out the whole plan that the global elite are trying to do.
Good morning. My name is Carol Rosin. In 1974, after being a sixth grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, "Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space." And I said, teachers don't stop until June. He said, "No, you have to understand. This is February, and we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies," he said, "against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids." And then he would repeat to me over and over, "And the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat." Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear in the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare, that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. And then he told me that, in fact, if you travel around the world, which I did after he died in 1977, I met with people in over 100 countries who were friends. They didn't want to build space-based weapons. I became a space and missile defense consultant. And I worked with people around the world. I became an advisor to the People's Republic of China. They don't want to build a space-based weapon system. And he told me back then that they didn't. He said, "Go to Russia. They're considered to be the enemy." I got on a plane by myself. When I got to Russia, I had a list of people that I had read out of the newspaper. Chernenko was in office then. He was the only one I didn't get a chance to meet. They introduced me to everyone when I got there. And when I got back, I said, "Oh my Lord, this man is telling the truth." Is no threat. And I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie.
What I found, kind of as a side note of interest in this regard, we talked about on the show we did with John the other day, that show on Netflix, Ascension. And in the beginning, the first episode, there's this young kid who's like a reporter, journalist type of kid, and he goes to this sort of nursing home place and finds this aged Project Paperclip former Nazi, NASA scientist, and the guy's got like dementia in bed, and he's kind of babbling to himself or whatever, and he makes a statement about the vaulted dome. I think it was either vaulted dome or
interesting
the heavenly shield. I forget how he was loosely quoting scripture in sort of this babble speech that he was kind of rambling.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the places.
He was agitated earlier. That's why we called. His visitor seemed
Visitor? I'm his only visitor, and he barely knows I'm here.
Beneath me, beneath you, beneath the vault of heaven, we make all anew.
Dad, can you talk to me for once?
I don't know the man, but he's still on the grounds. I passed him just outside talking on his phone.
I still need more information.
Why are you harassing my father?
You're the son, hers. Look, I'm really sorry about what your father's going through. The stroke and what it's done to him, it must be hellish to see him that way. I'm Mark Hayes. I didn't mean to upset him. I've admired Dr. Ensman for years. I'm doing my dissertation on his work.
You're an academic.
Yeah. I'm finishing my PhD on the history of the early space program. It's tragic to me that most people don't know who your father is. He inspired me.
He inspired me, too.
I guess it's kind of hard to top a dad who escaped from the Nazis and then developed rockets for NASA, huh?
He makes a statement, which sets, if you know the show, sets the stage for, there's nowhere to go. We can't go up, we can't go out. And the very end of that first season, basically, the people on the ship were a grand experiment, and this girl starts to manifest some sort of supernatural powers. And through these supernatural powers, one of the astronauts on this alleged spaceship is basically supernaturally transported like through a wormhole, warp, or whatever, and ends up, it looks like, on Mars.
Yeah.
But from the beginning of the show to the end of it, this whole idea of this vaulted dome over us is prohibitive. We can't get out of here that way.
Yeah.
So the next logical way then must be through a portal or some sort of interdimensional pathway.
Yeah.
So real interesting. I don't know what to make of the Wernher von Braun stuff, at least in his later years, but during his NASA years, I mean, right here we're right in the middle of the space race, allegedly, with Russia. And he goes down to Antarctica with a bunch of other Nazi. No, I get them mixed up now. Nazis and NASA, because they're pretty much synonymous.
Good one, yeah.
These somebody said NASA stands for Nazi American Space Apes. It's appropriate, but I mean, he's down there in Antarctica looking for moon rocks. Now, I'm saying, wait a minute. We haven't, at least at that point, we hadn't even been to the moon. So it's not like you could pick up a rock and turn it over and it says made on the moon. So how are you going to know the rock that you're holding? You have no litmus test to prove that the rock that you have is a moon rock, and yet they're down there collecting moon rocks before we ever allegedly went there.
Yeah, yeah. I had heard rumors as well that even before I was delving into this, that the rocks that would be a great place to grab rocks. Because it was such a unique continent. If you were going to fake moon rocks, you want to go somewhere where nobody's been to actually get rocks, and that was the place. It's like, just dig up on the ice. They're going to be unique compared to just about anything where we are. It's not like you can grab them, from the Phoenix Desert or somewhere in New Mexico, wherever they're filming the Mars rover stuff.
Yeah.
So, people can take that verse on his headstone different ways. And for me, I'm going to go with the silver lining, and that is that he knew, of course, which he would have, he would have known the entire time what exactly the world looked like. And that he was like just kind of throwing this out there. It kind of at that, from the grave, obvious play on words, but it's true. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to, my last words, my last thing on my headstone, I'd probably put in a sealed envelope is about the firmament. Why would you talk about that? It for me, it's like it's a little bit of a giveaway. I would hope that he, his conscience was getting to him towards the end. But I got to mention the Ascension thing that you brought up. Ascension, because I was thinking about it, I was going, wow, what a cruel thing to do to those astronauts. For those of you who have not watched Ascension, the short series from the Sci-Fi Network, it's a really, really interesting little mini series. But how long was that mission? Like 50 years, 100 years?
It was 50 years. 50. I think it's meant to be 100 years. I think the third generation was supposedly going to be there, so it was like this grand generational experiment.
Yeah. So the whole premise, and I'll give spoilers away because you still should watch it even if you know what's going on. And that is, if they create a giant rocket ship and they want to see what it was going to be this massive mission, 50, 100 years to whatever the nearest star was.
Our eyes must be focused on the stars. If we are to have any hope of surviving this arms race, this space race, indeed, this human race.
Have you seen Lorelai?
No. I'm sure she's around somewhere.
Esteemed colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ascension.
And what they did was the rocket didn't go anywhere. They just put it in this giant hangar and simulated the stars with these massive planetariums all around it, so that if you were on the bridge of the spaceship, you didn't know if you were in real space or not. And I thought, wow, that's awful. But at the same time, if you're going to, and the whole purpose was they wanted to test people in long-term space situations to where there was multi-generations of people living in space. And, if you're going to do that, you really can't tell them. Because if you do, it takes, like the guy said at the end of the first season, it takes away it. Once they figure it out, the whole thing falls apart. Because psychologically, then they don't care anymore. It's like, well, we're in a studio anyway, so who cares? We're just going to be living in this place for 50 years. Putting them out in space, it's a whole different aspect.
I think it was episode 2 or 3 where this lower level mechanic guy or whatever causes some trouble, and they have a fight. And basically, to end the fight, the guy who was fighting with him sends him through the airlock. And he thinks he's being sucked out in space, and he's dead. And so they show him getting sucked out. He's like, oh, and all of a sudden the scene goes from like stars to like rafters, and then he lands on like this inflatable bag, and he's pick him up and take him away. And that's what I like jumped out of my chair watching.
Yeah, same here.
Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You think I don't have total control? Every detail, from the movement of the stars to the flushing of the toilets, is exactly as it would be on the real journey. The minute they doubt the validity of their environment is the minute the experiment fails.
It is magnificent.
It's more than that. Ascension is a lifeboat for humanity.
Yeah, as soon as I saw him land on that giant black airbag, I was going, oh. It's a fake. It's a con, and it's great. And then I got it because, again, it was recommended to me by a flat earther, and because I wasn't figuring it out. I was like, why am I watching this? And then I see it, and as soon as I saw those double planetariums that kind of fit over the bridge of that thing like a clamshell, that was a great shot, and I used that in one of the Strange World intros. And not a lot of people got it. They didn't understand, and it's like, no, it's from Ascension. Watch it if you get a chance. It's totally worth it.